I have been sitting here kind of going through like this. I guess I went down a rabbit hole is the best way to say it. So, let's just get into it. You come on, come on with me down the rabbit hole. Like let's talk. Hey friend, hey, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Sharena, XOXO Sharena on the socials. Let me start by saying that this is my new book of the month. I'm gonna say like 2 months because the last book I read, it definitely took me like 2 months to finish it, mainly because I have to like make myself put down technology and read. But anyway, this is the new book of the month or two, called The Audacity to Be Queen. This book is so good. I heard about this book from Shelly on YouTube, and she was talking about it and talking about like how you have to step into being queen, and sometimes it's your princess that is running rampant, and the reason why you don't want to do certain things, but you gotta push her to the side sometimes and get, get on your Zoom and get into your queen. So I've been reading this book, y'all, and this book has been getting every bit of my life. Like everything was cool until let me check, because sometimes I be thinking I'm further along in books than I am, but I think yeah, I was right this time. I'm in chapter 5. Everything started, yeah, everything was kind of cool until I think chapter 5. Well, it was heating up in chapter 4, but chapter 5 kind of just like, ooh, hit your girl in the face. So let me tell you about this rabbit hole I just went down, because this book is really like helping me to figure out, like, right now I'm kind of in the chapter about shadow work, so that's probably why I'm going through the things I'm going through today. But I also, been on Pinterest, so I just basically was hit with like a 1-2 uppercut, and then because of that, it just made me sit and think and reflect. And instead of picking up a journal, I cut the camera on, so yeah, my journal. So here's the thing. Sometimes you just gotta realize, like, you might be the problem, or you might have more of a hand in your problem than you think, and it's not necessarily everybody else. Okay, don't click off. Stay with me. So I'm on Pinterest, right? And I also was gonna do makeup, but then I realized, like, I don't want to. I just want to talk to y'all. So that's what we're gonna do. Just stay with me. I'm on Pinterest, right? And then this comes up. I hope y'all can see that. I know it's like fingerprints on here, but anyway, it says a goal is a personal promise to your future self. Okay. So then the other one says, well, no. Did I see that? I think I saw these at the same time. A goal is a personal promise. Okay, cool. And then the other one was like, oh wait, no, a goal is a personal promise to your future self. Y'all, I don't even know how I mentally put all this together, but it all came together, and here we go. Story time. Growing up, let's talk about my childhood. Growing up, first few years of my life, uh, till I was about 8, we lived in Louisville, Kentucky. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. And if you watch my older vlogs, you see that we go back all the time. Oh, actually, no, we was just there in January. Um, yeah, so I think as of like January back, you'll see videos of us, me and my family back in Louisville, Kentucky, because I have a lot of family still there. Anyway, that is also where my father is. My father that I don't have a relationship with at all in my 30s. Actually, relationship kind of ended probably by like age 9, because we moved to a different state. Things just happened, whatever. So we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is from birth to 8. In that timing, my father was present, but he was young 20s. My mother was young teens. He was young 20s. And what you do when you young 20s? You go live your life. He had a car. He was hanging out. He was living his life. I get to my kid when I get to my kid. I actually recently just had to think about that and realize like me in my young 20s, especially in the summertime, I was outside. Kid who? That's probably how I got pregnant at 21 in the first place because 18, 19, 20, our summers went up. Okay? Didn't have no money, didn't really have a job, but somehow we was outside every day in the summer. Anywho, so I can't really put too much on him because I kind of understand. Like, I know you would say, oh, well, you got responsibilities. Okay, whatever. So then I had this thought, and I talked about this with my therapist, maybe like 2 years ago or whatever. That when you think about it and you think about your first relationship with a man, that's your father. My father was the one to say things like, I'll come pick you up on Saturday. And come Saturday, he was nowhere to be found. When I come back, I'm going to teach you how to ride that bike. When he came back, I was riding that bike. It was things like that that was said, and I think that as parents, they always think you don't remember things, but yeah, I remember those things. So I actually started thinking that within the last few years, I've been thinking, oh, I got abandonment issues, but I really don't. Like the more I look into it, I'm like, this isn't my issues. It's just really daddy issues. Okay, it is what it is. Um, but that was the first relationship I had, right? So what he taught me was disappointment. What he taught me was that men um are kind of disposable. Like they come and they go. And as I get older and I become more of a woman, I get to choose if you come and you go, but I don't really care if you go. You ain't got to stay. And that's always my mentality because that was my foundation of a relationship with the man. And I know you like, well, how does that correlate with what you just read on this Pinterest? Okay, girl, I'm getting there. Anyway, so um as you get older and really within it's seriously like the last few days. I just had kind of been like in my head a little bit too much. And this is where journaling and therapy come in, but there's YouTube, there's y'all. I can talk to y'all. Hey friend, and I'm talking to you about it. Because I just need to talk about it, I guess. And I'm sure other people go through this because, the single mother rate or percentage in America is very high. So I know it's a lot of people out there that deal with issues with their father not being there. Daddy wasn't there to take me to the fair. Those things kind of shape you. Okay. What would happen is in relationships, I think I just kind of, once I started to be like happy in a relationship, and I've heard this before when people are like, it's too good to be true. I'm happy. I just know something's going to happen. And I'm like, why would you think like that? I'm a very optimistic person, so I don't want to think like that. But subconsciously, sometimes I did go down that same path because my thought is he's gonna leave. Like that's a thought that's always in the back of my head. Like eventually he's gonna leave. This is gonna end. Like it's not forever. Like it's good now. But I don't know. After arguing so many times, this ain't gonna work. This not gonna work. He's not gonna last. And subconsciously, those are the thoughts that are in my mind without even like really realizing that that's what's happening. That's what's really happening because my actions start to align with that of, I don't care if you stay or you go. I'm good either way. Very independent mindsets. So that's kind of I think like 2 years ago why me and my therapist had that conversation, because it's like, how do you get there? And I had to dig a little deeper and figure out, okay, this is how I got there. It's because this was the initial relationship that I had with my father. So I correlate that with every man that I've been with. No, they're not the same people, and no, their habits aren't always the same. However, it's just that's what's there. So of course I still got to do some more work. Um, and that's also why I'm not dating right now, so that I can do that work. Because no, I do want a husband that's gonna be there, not my man, not my boyfriend, my husband. Can't wait to be able to say that, y'all. Y'all gonna be so sick of me, and I can't wait. But anywho, when I get there, I don't want to ever have that thought of, oh, well, he's gonna leave. No, 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 no. I don't want that. I kind of think that sometimes it depends on the person you're with too, like how much security you feel with that person, how safe you feel with them, will tone that down. There's other factors, but anyway, that's not what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about is how this got there. So I started going through this whole conversation of like mental conversation of um like I learned this disappointment from him. And when I'm in relationships, it's like I subconsciously expect disappointment. And then if it comes, I'm disappointed, but I'm not the highest level of disappointment because that's what y'all do, right? But I'm good regardless. And that's just a protective, like what do they say, like a defense mechanism, because I am used to this feeling. I'm a little too used to this feeling, honestly, and I'm tired of this feeling, to be completely honest. So, I was sitting here on Pinterest and I read this, and okay, so this is how one connects to the other. So I read a goal is a personal promise to your future self. And I started to think, how many goals did I write out and say I was gonna do? And maybe when I got close to it, I self sabotaged and was like, no, I'm not gonna do it, or I pushed it off, or um I don't know, counted myself out. I didn't go as hard as I should have went. How many times did I do that? A lot of times. Let's be honest. A lot of times, especially like in the last 2 years. A lot of times. So if a goal is a personal promise to my future self, that means that I'm making a goal. I'm promising to my future self, my present self is promising my future self that will accomplish this. However, that person in between, that present self makes the goal, that person in between that actually has to do the work so that the future self can have the promise, she checks out. She self sabotages. She is how we end up right back in the cycle of disappointment. So, why did I bring up my father? I brought up my father because sometimes we tend to think that the reason why we do things is because of someone else. And maybe I've gotten some of that from him, or maybe I've gotten it from other people. However, me today, as a grown woman, I should be able to stand up on my own 10 toes and say, this stops here. Because now it's not someone else disappointing you. It's not ex disappointing you. It's now you disappointing you. And it gets to the point where I can no longer point fingers. It's time to point thumbs. Like, it's time to get on my Zoom. Okay, that's what the problem is. So, if you are a person where you constantly deal with disappointment and it's like I'm dealing with it because of other people, or sometimes it's because we depend too much on other people, but while you're depending on somebody else, what is it that you're supposed to be doing, Or are you dependent on people to do things that you could do yourself? And then we put all, and the reason why we do that is because we're putting all the responsibility on someone else, so we can say, see, this why I can't trust nobody. This why I can't trust men. This why I can't do X, Y, and Z. When really, you, babe, I'm not talking to y'all, I'm talking to myself. It's you. The reason why you're not getting the promises that you're supposed to have, as in the goals that you're setting for yourself, it's because you are self-sabotaging. You are setting yourself up for disappointment. You are not doing all the work in between, because present self and future self are in place. Baby girl, they got to do the work in the middle. Got to work on that disconnect as to why she's dropping a ball. She's self-sabotaging, and she's constantly reverting back to disappointment, because at some point you got to get to the point of it can't be everybody else. You're the common denominator. So what's going on in here? I brought up this book because this book, especially chapter 5, uh she's reading me all my rights, okay? She's getting me all the way together. You can you really can't. It's so much easier to just point your fingers to everybody else and just say it's because of you, or it's because of no, really it's because you depended too much on someone. You relied too much on someone. And people are human. They're going to mess up. No one is perfect. But sometimes it's having too high of an expectation for people when you don't even got that high of an expectation for yourself. You have way more grace for you than you do for other people. But instead of putting that responsibility on others, or depending so much on others, or sitting back and waiting for others to disappoint you because you set up the play so that they can disappoint you, I'm not there no more. I'm now there where it's like, no, what is it I need to do? What is it I need to do? And sometimes the reason why the goal doesn't make it to the promise is because I don't necessarily write out all the steps. All the steps is going to take to get from A to Z. And you can't have a goal turn into a promise if you don't do the steps in between. And then sometimes you don't necessarily know there's so many steps. So if you can get a good ballpark idea of what it is you need to have in place, then at least you can get there. And yes, some things might pop up along the way, but at least you're along the way. Sitting back and just saying like, oh no, this is not gonna work, or I can't do it in time, or I'm gonna push this back a year, and I've done that. I've done that, especially in the last 2 years. I'm gonna push this goal back a year. I'm gonna push it back another 6 months, and it's like, why are we pushing it back so much? And sometimes it's just the belief, the confidence of, can I really accomplish what I say I'm going to accomplish? Sometimes it's not putting in the right kind of work. And that's a little difficult because sometimes you think you're doing the right work. And that just comes with trial and error, because you'll eventually learn that you need to shift, your efforts. But you live and you learn, right? It was me going down the rabbit hole of, okay, well, why is my goals not making it to promises for my future self? Well, and then what happens when that doesn't happen? Well, I'm disappointed. Well, why am I always disappointed? Why am I in a cycle of disappointment? And yeah, because I've done previous work, that's how everything was able to connect for me. And I'm glad I did the work previously. I'm glad I sat here and had this conversation with y'all. And I'm glad I sat there and thought about it. However, it really just put me in a place of, you might have to go ahead and point these thumbs and figure out where the disconnect is for you. And for me, sometimes the disconnect is really just like the confidence of getting things done, or maybe the goal is just too big and I'm really like pushing myself a little too much, but I want to, because how great would that be to accomplish this goal, because it's such a big goal. Um, or sometimes it's honestly just not writing down all the steps from A to Z to make sure that I get to Z. So that's what I figured out so far for myself. And I just wanted to have this chit chat with y'all, have this little rant about what all I'm doing, what all I'm figuring out, because at the end of the day, I'm going to continue working on myself. I'm going to continue doing the inner work. And I encourage you to do it as well. If that's not the path you're on, okay, so be it. But if you've been thinking about, yeah, I really need to work on some things, or I need to um, just work on my belief, work on my confidence, work on me, not necessarily worry about anybody else around me, but really work on the inner self, then I encourage you to do so. Definitely get a journal and write it out. Or, if you're brave enough to just hit this record button and record your thoughts, go ahead, because here we are. I just wanted to have this talk. Hopefully this encourages someone to sit there and do the work for themselves as well. And I know it's a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes you just have to say, it's not everybody else. A lot of times it's not, well, no, sometimes it's not everyone else disappointing you. Sometimes it's you disappointing you. And then, once you get to that realization, where do we go from here? We make changes. We get better habits. We put in the work so that you can break this cycle of disappointment and no longer just blame it on everybody else. You got more of a hand in it than you think. Ooh, let me drink to that. So I encourage you to do the work. I'm going to continue to do the work. I'm going to try my best to continue to keep recording as I'm doing the work. And yeah, if y'all want to dive into this conversation more with me, leave a comment below. I'd love to chit chat with you about this. But that is it for me. Thank y'all so much for watching. Until the next video. Bye. Buy myself all of my favorite things. Been through some bad shit, I should be a savage.